Buonasera a tutti, sono Guido Harari. Questa sera siamo collegati su Facebook con Frank Stefanko da Palmyra, New Jersey. Hi Frank, ciao Frank.
Buonasera a tutti.
Sì, Frank è uno dei fotografi internazionali che ha aderito alla Photo Action per Torino, il progetto di beneficenza che abbiamo creato con Paolo Ranzani per il fondo straordinario Covid-19 di UGI Onlus e di Città della Salute di Torino. Quindi stasera abbiamo un ospite molto speciale con cui ho diversi anni di frequentazione, di amicizia e collaborazione. Frank fa parte del team di Wall of Sound Gallery. Abbiamo fatto 2 mostre sue di foto di Springsteen, di cui Frank è stato ed è tuttora uno dei fotografi personali da 40 anni. Frank, per chi non lo sapesse, ha realizzato 2 copertine iconiche di dischi altrettanto storici di Springsteen, che sono Darkness on the Edge of Town e The River. Sue foto sono state usate anche sulla copertina di Chapter and Verse, il CD che accompagna l'autobiografia Born to Run di Springsteen, anche questa con una foto di Frank. E quindi direi di introdurre, stasera però parleremo in inglese, quindi questo credo sia l'unico testo che dirò in italiano. Vorrei cominciare leggendo quello che ha scritto Springsteen di Frank nella sua autobiografia Born to Run. Allora racconta Springsteen: io e Patti Smith ci eravamo conosciuti grazie al lavoro a 4 mani su Because the Night. Al bottom line, dove ero andato a vederla, mi aveva dato il nome di un fotografo del Jersey del Sud, fatti fotografare da lui. Fu così che un pomeriggio d'inverno presi la macchina e andai a Haddonfield, dove conobbi Frank Stefanko, che aveva immortalato Patti agli esordi. Lavorava in un mattatoio e si dedicava alla sua passione, quella per la fotografia, nel tempo libero. Frank era un tipo ruvido ma bonario. Se ben ricordo, quel giorno si fece prestare la macchina fotografica e chiese a un ragazzino che abitava di fianco a lui di reggere l'unica luce che aveva. Appoggiato alla tappezzeria floreale in camera sua e della moglie, guardai dritto nell'obiettivo, sfoderando la mia migliore espressione da giovane tormentato, e lasciai che lui facesse il resto. Uno degli scatti finì sulla copertina di Darkness on the Edge of Town. Le fotografie di Frank erano nude e crude. Riusciva a spogliarti della celebrità e degli artifici per arrivare al vero tu. Quelle immagini possedevano una purezza e una povertà quasi francescana, erano incantevoli e sincere, non costruite. Frank mi scavò dentro, intuendo spontaneamente i conflitti con i quali ero alle prese. I suoi scatti raccontavano i personaggi delle mie canzoni, mostrandomi quel Bruce che era ancora uno di loro. Avevamo delle alternative per la copertina dell'album, ma nessuna trasmetteva quel disperato senso di bisogno. Ok, Frank? So I think you remember very well what Bruce has written in his autobiography. And I would like to start, first of all, thanking you again for donating an image of Bruce for Photo Action in Turin. And I would like to say that you're one of a few photographers that have been very shy and in their relationship to the subject, to the artist, and that have privileged the relationship more than the photos. To you, I think Bruce is more a friend than a subject for pictures, and that's the way your relationship has been for over 40 years. So I think this is a special gift, and I want also for you to tell us why you never decided to become a professional photographer. I mean, you kept it as a passion, a very well refined passion, but you never made the move. You still have your job as you had when you met Bruce. So tell us your story, and of course meeting Patty, which led to meeting Bruce.
Sì, maestro. So
Ah,
ever since I found a camera, an old box camera in my home when I was 8 years old, and my father showed me how to load it, I always wanted to do photography. I always wanted to be a photographer. I was fascinated by the process. I was fascinated by the art form. So you say, why didn't you ever become a professional photographer? Well, the fact that I'm in galleries all over the world now, I guess I'm a little bit of a professional photographer. But yes, you're right. My relationship with and my friendship with some of my subjects, like Bruce Springsteen and Patti Smith and some other folks, is more valuable to me than um, exploiting or trying to promote myself in that aspect. People say I am a rock and roll photographer. That was never my ambition growing up. I just wanted to be a good photographer. I wanted to be able to be known for my landscape photographs as well as my portraits and my concert footage and the other things that I do. So when it comes to that, if somebody says Frank STEFANKO, yeah, he's a good photographer, then I'm very happy. I'm satisfied. I don't need the glitz and glitter. When I was younger, when I was very young, I had my first wife and I had two children. I was only 21 years old. I was raising a family, and I had to earn a living. So I had a day job, and I think I've always had a day job. And I needed to make money to pay the bills, to put food on the table, to put a roof over your head. And I mean, would I have? My dream was to have a studio in Manhattan and have people come to me and and we sit down and we do photographs and we go to dinner and it, that would have been lovely. But it didn't work
yeah.
out that way. It was family came first, la familia, and and then my relationships with Bruce and Patty are very special, and because of those relationships, I was able to do work with them over the years, and Southside Johnny, and some other folks and some other artists in New York, and I was able to go to concerts and photograph other great rock bands as well. But I was also able to, with the money that I make from photography, I'm able to get out into wild places, into French Polynesia, into the desert Southwest, into the mountains of Maine and Nova Scotia by the sea, and in other places all over the world, including urban places like Paris and London and Milan.
Yeah.
Uh,
Alba.
Thanks to you, Alba, Milano, Bologna, Venice, Venezia. We've been to so many beautiful, beautiful places. You've showed me how beautiful Italy is, and that's a gift that that I cherish very much.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you. We have enjoyed many adventures together by now. And so let's go back to those early 70s. And actually, we have to say that we had a great project a few years ago. We made a book together,
Yeah,
which was a big testament and monument.
very.
If you judge from the size
You are
and the
very
weight.
strong to be able to hold that up, all 10 pounds.
Yeah.
You know.
And this book we published in 2017, and here I told you I don't want this to be just a compilation of photos. Want it to be your story, the story of your relationship with Patty and the New York scene in the early 70s. I mean, you're from New Jersey. Bruce and Patty are from New Jersey, and you were attracted to New York, and you started hanging out with musicians in clubs and with artists. And you went to college with Patty for a brief time, and that's when you met and you started photographing her when she was totally unknown. And so, tell me about those early years, because they're really something special.
Well, of course, besides photography, I was always involved with music in one way or another. My parents had, this is before we had anything like air conditioning or television. If young people can't relate to that, there
Yeah.
was a time before air conditioning and television. And what we had in our living room was a large console radio with a 20-inch speaker on it. And my parents were very open-minded about the music that they would listen to. So we listened to everything from opera to classical music to country western music to country swing music to bluegrass to the hit parade, all the modern to big band music, to everything that was coming over the radio. I was listening to it. And then came rock and roll. And then came Elvis. And then came Little Richard, rest his soul. And this was exciting music. So as the music evolved, I evolved with it. And ergo, I would go to a lot of concerts in the Philadelphia market or sometimes in New York to see different bands play. And I was in college with Patty, and she was different. It was a small college in South Jersey, in the farmlands of South Jersey. And Patty was taking a lot of art courses, and she had friends who were bohemian types. Janet Hamill was a poet, and there were actors, and there were artists and sculptors, and she hung with these people. And I didn't know her. She wasn't in any of my classes. So one day I was in the co-op, which is this place on campus where you could get a hamburger and a soda and sit in a booth and study your books before your next class or whatever you needed to do. So the door opens up to the co-op, and this vision, this apparition came in, the vacuum when the doors opened up. This beautiful, tall woman with long black flowing hair over a floor-length white leather coat that she was wearing, and she just appeared in the doorway. And then she moseyed into the co-op, like I said before, like an outlaw or a bad guy in a Western movie. She just moseyed in, and she saw her friends at the booth and said, she saw Janet. She said, "Janet, Chaps," she called her Chaps. "Fire of my loins. How the hell are you?" And I said immediately, I have to know this person. This is a very different person, and I need to be friends with this person. And so as time went by, I got to be friends with her, and we hung out on campus. And I took her to the very first Rolling Stones concert that came to Philadelphia. I think it was either 1965 or 1966. I borrowed an old Nash Rambler from a friend of mine, and it was a cold day, and we went and we saw the Stones. Well, that was the beginning of a lifelong friendship, and we are still friends. We still talk to each other, and I was fortunate. She went up to New York, not before, but once she moved up to New York and left college, and I would go up on weekends sometimes to see my friends in New York City and take photographs. And I would take photographs of Patty.
Yeah.
So, well, she was so beautiful and photogenic. So ultimately, as time would have it, Patti Smith was working on an album called Easter at the record plant in 1978. At the same time, in the same studio, Bruce Springsteen was working on an album called Darkness on the Edge of Town. And Bruce was working with Patty. They had worked together on a song called Because the Night. And, you know, they hung out occasionally, but he finally saw some of the photographs that I did of Patty and said, you know, who did these? And Patty said, that's Frank. He's a fan of yours. He's my friend. He's a fan in South Jersey. And, you know, he's one of your biggest fans and he should photograph you, you know. So one thing led to another. And I got a call from Patty saying, Bruce Springsteen's here with me looking at the photographs that you took of me. And he would like you to photograph him. And I said, sure. That was a dream, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything after that for a few months. And then one day he just called up and said, let's get together and do some photographs. And we started working many weekends for a very important album for him, which was Darkness on the Edge of Town. It was an album that he had to make good on because it would have been his last chance with Columbia Records to make good. It was very important that it be, and he took control of everything, including, you know, approving the graphics. And thank God he approved my photographs. He felt that my photographs best represented the characters that he was writing about in that album.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of several album covers that we did together, but more importantly, it was the beginning of now about a 43-year relationship, you know, of just being friends. And I don't mean we're hanging out every day. It's just, you know, we do things from time to time, and we, you know, it's been a good relationship.
You had quite a lot of photo shoots between 78, 79, 80, consecutive photo shoots with Bruce on his own, with the E Street Band, all around New Jersey. And this picture that appeared briefly, and I will show it again, is your icon, I would say, because Bruce, a few years ago, picked it up as the cover of his autobiography. So it means that this represents the essence of his journey. And so I would like to know, this was right outside your house in Haddonfield. As a matter of fact, being sentimental as we are, we went there.
Yes.
And the background is the same. The house in the background, amazingly, is still there. And this was, hang on a second, this was your house.
Yes.
Which was in front of the car. And that's where you took all those pictures. So what happened? I mean, he came one day on his own with a different car from the one you photographed, I think. And you had many things in common. You were both from New Jersey, both from Italian families of Italian origins. How did it click between the two of you?
Well, first of all, can you go back to the Corvette winter shot?
Sure.
Because I wanted to talk about that briefly as a singular photograph, and then we can get to that. This photograph, as you say, was my most popular photograph of Bruce, and it is sold out in many editions, almost every edition, actually. And the galleries that represent me, you and the others, but mostly Morrison Hotel Gallery, because they started this photo, you know, selling these photographs early on, and it was their most popular. I was told it was one of their biggest selling or the most popular selling photograph. And I often wondered, why is this photograph? What makes this one better than Frank's barbershop photograph or one of the other photographs of Bruce? And I kept looking at it, trying to find out what was so special about it. And I looked at Bruce, and I looked at the car, and I looked at the house across the street and the front porch. And one day I was looking at it, Guido, and I said, oh my God, I get it. This is Thunder Road. This is the definitive Thunder Road photograph, you know, where he says, from your front porch to my front seat, the door's open, but the ride, it ain't free, you know. And I said, that's it, you know, okay. It's people that like cars will like this photograph. People that like Bruce will like this photograph. But I will come to Naples one day. But, you know, it has a lot of the components from Thunder Road. So, you know, yes, in that house that I lived in, to go back to where we were, we shot. He came in for the first time. I told him to bring some clothes. He brought a few changes of clothes, jeans and a t-shirt and a flannel shirt and in a paper bag, and that was his wardrobe. And we sat in my living room for a while, and I showed him some portfolios of mine, and so he could see what some of my other work was. And we started talking, and found out that we had very much a lot in common. Both our families were from New Jersey. They're both working class families, you know, blue collar. And his mother and my mother were Italian, and our fathers were not Italian, but, you know, a different. So we had that sort of great mixture. And we both liked the Jersey Shore, and we liked the Pine Barrens, and we liked the same music, and the same, you know, bands and everything. So all of a sudden, even though he was a couple of years younger than me, we found out, you know, I felt very comfortable with him, and I think he felt very comfortable with me. So then we started shooting over several weeks for the Darkness album cover, and then later I went up to New York to do some other shots. And as it turned out, he called me up one day to tell me that I got the cover for Darkness on the Edge of Town, front, back, and inner sleeve. And that was the beginning. That was the first time. Yeah.
This is the inner sleeve, by the way. Yeah.
Called Among Roses. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the idea of taking a picture inside your bedroom?
When we had just, my wife and I, we moved from an apartment into this house. My wife wanted my children, who were very young at the time, to have a good school system. And Haddonfield, New Jersey had a very good school system. She was very caring about the children that way. And so we bought this house, and it wasn't quite totally furnished yet, so there was a lot of room to move around. This was in my wife and I in our bedroom.
Yeah.
And had this old-fashioned cabbage roses, and one of the effects that I was looking at is the fact that it looked like it could have been taken in the 50s, or it could have been in the 60s, or the 70s, or the 80s. You know, so. And I think, you know, Bruce related to this as well, because it kind of reflected on the working class and characters that he was singing about in this.
Were you familiar with the album that would have these photos on the cover?
I didn't.
Did Bruce let you listen to a tape or something?
No, I didn't listen to any music for Darkness or The River when I did that cover. It wasn't until we did shooting for Nebraska that I was, you know, that Bruce and I listened to, you know, his whole album before we started shooting for Nebraska.
Yeah.
And that's the one album cover I didn't get. So
yeah. But you went very close because your pictures got published widely.
Yes.
And this is you shooting Bruce on the top of, is that Record Plant Studios?
Yeah, the rooftop of the record plant on West 45th Street in New York City. One of the things that Bruce wanted to do was to do some photographs up on the roof. So we did some in the daytime, and then we came back in the evening and did some at night. The nighttime photographs were very interesting because it made it look like some back alley somewhere in the city, you know, at night. A whole different appearance.
And then you started shooting Bruce with the band. How different that was. I mean, taking individual shots was a very intimate experience, but then having a band around, how did the chemistry change, and how did you react to that?
After the first 2 days of shooting, it came down on a Saturday, and then wanted to come back again on Sunday, and there was just Bruce and myself. And he said, next week, can I bring the band down? We'll do some band shots. I said, of course. So these two great big long, what I call pimp mobiles, were big mobiles from the 70s, that, with the big fins on the back and everything. One belonged to Clarence and one belonged to Stephen. And they were filled, the whole East Street band loaded into those two cars, and they pulled up in front of my house. And the whole band came into my house, and we started shooting. And it was wild because, while I was setting up different setups and changing some lights, Bruce would keep the band entertained by telling them these great stories and jokes. I mean, you could see that he was in control. I believe I had mentioned that I had at one point played chess with Clarence, and he beat my pants off. So, but and then they were playing craps. They were shooting craps on my dining room table just to keep busy,
Yeah.
But finally, when we exhausted the area immediately around my house and inside my house, I said, well, maybe, I called up a friend of mine. He's deceased now, but Bill Cello had a little luncheonette in East Camden, New Jersey. And we all went over there and did some shots in the luncheonette with the pinball machine and the booths and the counter, and they became quite interesting photographs. I remember telling Bill, keep the store open. I'm coming over with Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. He said, yeah, sure you are. I said, have I ever lied to you? He says, okay, I'll keep the door open then.
Well, I must say that this shot that was taken in your living room has a small fascinating detail, that print here. That frame print. It's a beautiful portrait that we used in the book of one of your early New York friends, probably an artist.
That was a gal named Brandy, and she's a go-go dancer. And that photograph, although this photograph's in black and white, that one was hand-colored with all this bizarre coloring around her eyes and everything. I think I said in our book, Guido, that these poses are so contrived that they're absurd, because nobody sits around a house like that. But it was
all right.
Yeah, the sit down at Cellos. This is all popular photograph.
Yeah.
I don't know how the whole band squeezed into this luncheon booth, but they managed to do it. And there's the pinball machine and the knotty pine wood and the Formica counters. It's so 50s,
Who did you get closer to within the band? Who did you become more friends than with others?
Besides Bruce, I became friends with Stephen. We actually got together, and he was producing an album for Southside Johnny called Hearts of Stone, and invited me up to New York, and we worked together for a whole day and night in Little Italy, New York, on that album cover. So we kind of, we hit it off.
But this is all very spontaneous stuff. It's almost reportage. Who were your influences, your inspirations when you started out?
My photographic idols, my inspiration, were the old school people like Edward Steichen and Alfred Stieglitz. Their photographs were so beautiful, and the lighting was so perfect. I also got a lot of my inspiration and education about how to light up a photograph and how to, compose a photograph. I mean, I went to college and I took some courses, but I got more education from watching old film noir movies, Humphrey Bogart and Robert Mitchum, and the old black and white movies. If you look at those movies, every frame is a beautiful composition, beautifully lit and beautifully organized, and you could learn a lot from watching old movies.
Yeah. Yeah. This photo is particular. Actually, when I came to New Jersey to work on the book, we had fun. You know, you showed me all the locations, and
Oh, yeah.
here's the very same spot. You know.
That shot with Bruce was called the Indian King. It was a little bit cropped in the the way we put it out, as you can see by what the man's holding. But that was a very old tavern. This town that I lived in, called Haddonfield, New Jersey, was a 300-year-old town, and by United States standards, that's really old. Not by Italian standards.
Yeah.
But this was also now a museum. It was an old tavern, and that fellow is one of the characters that you can see if you go to visit the museum. I think recently I saw on Facebook somebody took some of my photographs and overlaid them on live shots of Haddonfield, and and fit those in. I don't know how they did that, but it was fascinating. They didn't ask for my permission, but it's all right, I guess.
Yeah. And here is more portraits. It was very productive shoot. And actually, you got 2 album covers basically out of one
Shooting.
extended shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
The river cover, yes.
Yeah.
Bruce felt, I think, because he was working on the album The River, he was mixing it out in California, and Jimmy Wachtel was his art director, I think, at the time, and Bruce was calling me from California at 2 o'clock in the morning every morning to work on different photographs for him to ship out to California. I think because the characters in The River, it's a beautiful double record set, were very much an extension of the characters from Darkness on the Edge of Town. It's one step out, beyond. I think he felt that the images that he was using, the character of himself that he was using for the cover of The River, made sense because it was taken from the same shooting session as Darkness. So it was just an extension of those characters.
And here it's the same year, I think, but the look, Bruce's look has changed.
Yeah, that's 78, the same as the Darkness. He does not have the Al Pacino hair.
Yeah.
He's got it combed back a little bit. It's a little more rock and roll, a little more slick, with the leather and everything. I kind of, when I was looking at him, I was, with the hair back like that, I saw several other characters from old movies like Dane Clark and that, and but I thought the look was really great. You could tell that he was evolving right before my very eyes.
Yeah, which takes us to Rooster, the image that you donated to Photo Action for Turin. So this was taken, I think, on the same night as the previous group shot, right?
Yes, it was taken in an alcove near the elevators of the building that the record plant was in. And it was just this little, there was an alcove and there was no table and no artwork. It was just a little curved wall. And I thought, well, that'd be a good place for him to stand. It's like a niche, niche.
Yeah. We have a question from Simone. He's asking, how long does it take to set up a group shot with such a big band? And does it all come in a very spontaneous way, or do you really have to work hard?
You have to set up the lighting so everyone has the light proper in their face. This particular shot that you have on the screen, it was on the nighttime on the rooftop. And as you can see, like I said, no longer does it look like a rooftop. It looks like a back alley somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's what the the magic of light or the absence of light can do. In this case, it was pitch black out there, and I had to focus, excuse me, I had to focus using a flashlight to make, because I had manual focus cameras in those days.
Yeah.
And we were using flash units, not strobes or anything like, spotlights or anything on the roof.
Yeah.
So we focused with a flashlight to make sure we had everybody in focus, and then we had to make sure we had everybody positioned so that when the lights went off, the flashes went off, everybody was lit up. It was a little tricky, but there are more involved lighting situations when you're using studio lights.
Yeah. Well, this image has the same kind of atmosphere and density of some of Ouija's crime scenes.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we all have our, our imagination. Very crowded imagination.
Yeah. Besides, like I said, Edward Steichen and Alfred Stieglitz, we and Deanne Arbus are also some of my, some of the people I like to learn from as well.
Yeah. And here, this is a new shoot. I think this was for Nebraska, around the time of Nebraska, right?
1982, yes.
And it was a different environment. You told me this was a house that Bruce had rented.
Not this house. This was my house in Haddonfield.
Right.
We did some shots at a house that he rented, as you say, on the Navesink River as well. But in this particular shot, we also did a series in Haddonfield as well.
Yeah. And this is great. I mean, it looks like a movie set. Yeah.
That was in Monmouth County on the Navesink River. This was the house that he rented where he was writing and recording Nebraska. And this was a bedroom where he slept in the center, where he's sitting by the bed. And I shot this in black and white. I also shot it in color. And I loved that setup because it reminded me of if he was on the road and stopped at some very inexpensive motel. This would be the motif, with the paint by number Gainsborough painting over the bed, and just an inexpensive floor lamp there, a table lamp, and he's there with that beautiful Rose Gibson acoustic that he had gotten and was very, very enamored with at the time. I remember when he opened the guitar case and showed it to me, he said, look at this.
Yeah, there are some shots like the one at the bottom right, where he looks a little bit like, between Elvis and Johnny Cash.
They were my rockabilly series.
Yeah.
In that same house, we did that, but we used a gray Savage, paper backdrop, and we lit it up. So he wore that kind of funky shirt. So all those poses, I kind of call that my rockabilly series.
Yeah. And then the interesting thing is that after this shoot, there's an almost 20 years long gap between before your next shoot with Bruce, and the whole mood changes. So
before that,
in the book you say that. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Before that, we're talking about the rockabilly stuff and all. We talked about this earlier, where he let me listen to the entire Nebraska album before we did any shooting, and that's when he was very quiet. He was sitting on the bed. I was sitting in a chair in his bedroom. He played the whole album for me, and afterwards he turned it off and he said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "My God," I said, "This is a crossover album." I said, "This is folk, country, rock. I can't put a category on this." And I said, "All I could say is that I hope that my photographs, my pictures, are half as good as the pictures that you're making here with your words."
Yeah.
And yes, that was it for a while, because he went off to California and spent some time out there, and he was into some other things. And while he was out there, David Rose did those great Lucky Town and Human Touch album covers, and he had a home out there. And yeah, there was a time when we talked about some things, but we didn't do anything.
Yeah. And then you had another opportunity. How did this shoot come about?
Bruce was working on the album called Devils and Dust, and Danny Clinch was getting involved with Bruce at this time too, doing some great work with Bruce. And so Bruce asked me to come up to the farm at Colts Neck, New Jersey, which was a big piece of ground that he had bought as an investment years ago. And there were some old houses on the property before he built his house that he lives in there now. Mm-hmm. And so we wandered around one of these old farmhouses, and many of I think they were stripping the wallpaper off of the walls. They were going to be repainted or re-wallpapered. And so there were several houses. That was not the one we were working in, but we went around the property and did some work for the Devils and Dust shoot, but they were never used for Devils and Dust. And I wasn't real happy with them at the time. And I think you saw those big 20 by 24 contact sheets that we had. Yeah. I had put them away. I had put all the negatives away, and it wasn't until you stinker, you came and said, I actually pulled all that work out, and I reevaluated them, and I said, these are good. What the hell did I put them away for?
Well, I was talking to Garrett Mankiewicz last night, and we were both agreeing on the fact that it's always amazing and exciting for a photographer to go back to his archives, his or her archives, after 40 years and find unseen stuff. That's incredible. I mean, the historical value of the pictures is even more important than the artistic value. These are documents.
Yeah,
documents of time, and
you had
that's how they should be valued.
When you had the vision to make the book Bruce Springsteen Further Up the Road with Me, to take all that work over the 40 years or so and to put it into a chronology, into a chronological order, and to see him at his raw beginning to his refined not endings, but this stage of the game. No ending. This stage of the game. It was very, very. It was brilliant. What you wanted to do.
Yeah, well, to me, I've made many books, and not just of my photos, but of other photographers, photos and archives, and it's very exciting and stimulating to go through someone else's eyes, and try to find your own eyes in somebody else's, which means you create the best possible picture, the most complete, the most the deepest picture that you could take, because we're always frustrated when we have like 10 minutes with somebody, and we'd like to grab more, to get in deep, to talk, to even have time to talk besides the time you need to take photos, and most of the time you're not allowed to do that. But once you go back to the archives, and then you have the patience and the time to let the story become real.
You were talking earlier about maybe I didn't have a studio, and maybe I didn't photograph all these great people besides Bruce and Patty and some others that Southside and some other bands that I photographed. But because we had that comfort level, because we had that friendship, yeah, in between photographs or photographing, I mean, I got a chance to get in a car with Bruce and drive off into the Jersey Pine Barrens and just, take a day looking around and having some fun and singing together. And, these are things that, Garrett, I'm sure, had that opportunity with some of the people that he hung with and many others,
Yeah.
but not everybody gets that chance. I've had people tell me they've had 5 minutes with Bruce to get a shot for whatever, whoever they were working for or whatever.
Yeah.
But I did an interview a couple days ago with Mitch. I'm having
Slater?
Mitch Slater. He's a good friend. My mind was going. Mitch Slater and Pam Springsteen and myself. And Pam mentioned something talking about those unseen photographs and such that when she was very young, Bruce had called me up from Newark Airport and said, my sister Pammy's getting into photography. Can we come down to Haddonfield to look at your dark room? And I said, sure, come on down. And they drove all the way down from up, 80 miles down, and they looked at the dark room, spent some time. She was very shy and she left. And, I didn't think I had too much of an impression on this young photographer sister of Bruce Springsteen.
Mm.
In the interview, she told me that she had some of my old contact sheets because Bruce had duplicate sets of contact sheets that I would give him to look over. And she was cutting out the little pictures and putting them in little frames and things. And she said, you don't know how much your photography meant to me,
Yeah.
And I just, that meant so much to me, because Pam's a tremendous photographer herself. She's done some beautiful work. So that was a good thing to hear. Oh, look at those two.
Talking about our great times in New Jersey, at your place, going through your incredible archives was really fantastic.
There was a lot of stuff we tore through.
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
Guido Harari calls me up and said, I was thinking about doing something because I had taken a lot more photographs over the years. And since my first book was published in 2003, I think.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this, and you emailed me one day and said, I think it's time you do a new book.
Yeah.
And I said, we're friends, but now you're getting inside my head. We've always been kindred spirits, but when you get an idea, and what do? You get on a plane from Italy and you fly to New Jersey. Boom, let's start.
Yeah. Yeah, with Wall of Sound, we had started to publish limited edition books besides the exhibition catalogs, and I had published a book of my photos of Kate Bush, which was quite successful. So we felt we wanted to move on with another project, and but it had to be special in the sense that it had to be, as we said before, about the story of a relationship between a photographer and his subject. So I think you were the perfect photographer, and there was not a book that covered the whole of the 40 years, of your collaboration. And actually, we were brave. You were brave to ask Bruce for a new photo shoot in order to cover exactly those 40 years. And so you have the first picture on the cover from 78, and on the back, you got this great portrait that you took in the spring, a few months before the book came out. I think that was, another stroke of genius.
He wanted to do it, and every time I saw him backstage at a concert or wherever we had a chance to talk, or through his people as well, he said, yeah, I want to do it, but he was so busy between 2016 and and 2017, and So one day I just said, we're coming up to deadline, and we really need to get these pictures in. And then he finally called me up and he said, "Can you come up to the farm on Monday?" And I said, there. And I said, "Look, I don't need, I'm not going to take too much of your time," because he was working on other projects at the same time. And I think we spent about 45 minutes, just under an hour, and we were able to get everything we needed to represent the 2017.
Yeah.
My favorite. My favorite.
This is your favorite, right?
Yeah.
That's a great look.
To me,
it's called Heartland.
It could have been a frame from an old Western movie, or it could have been one of the Oklahoma Dust Bowl photographs, those great photographs from that period of time. But it's just titled Hard Land, and it's very popular at the galleries too.
Yeah. And this is all natural light.
Yep.
But you had a set as well inside.
Yeah.
Inside the studio. But I think those outdoors shots are much more interesting. Interesting in the sense that there's an atmosphere, and the best stuff that you've done with Bruce has atmosphere. It's on location. It's either in the streets or up on a rooftop, very urban or more country. That's more about the various aspects of these personalities,
Somebody said to me, how do you stand so close to him without getting all crazy?
Yeah.
And I said, because I'm not afraid of him and he's not afraid of me. We have that familiarity, and I can get right up in his face to take a close portrait. And he knows I'm not going to, show him a bad way, or I'm not going to harm him in any way. So it's comfortable,
Yeah. Well, I wanna thank you publicly for another great gesture. Since you're still very good friends with Patty, you were a very nice. I mean, I have to say you're a great man. You're generous, and you gave Patty my book on Pasolini.
The Pasolini,
Yeah. So this means a lot to me.
And Patty, the story when you and I were in Bologna doing, Patty and her friend Lynn Davis came to your gallery in Alba looking for you and me. We weren't there.
Yeah, I forgot about that. When we were at Ono Gallery in Bologna for a show with Cristina Rigoni and Willie Nile, that was a wild day. Then somebody sent us a photo showing Patty outside the window of our gallery in Alba, where she was performing. Just and the gallery was closed. We were all away while she was there. That was fantastic.
I got a chance to see her at one point, and I think you gave her my book. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I gave her your book in Naples.
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, Frank deserved this." I said, "Certainly he does." Oh wow. Well, Frank, it's been a great conversation. I want to say hi to Miss Carol, who probably is listening. And Carol is Frank's wife, and his significant other, as you say in the States. And we had lots of fun in Italy and in New Jersey. So I hope you make it to Italy next time, because there will be a next time, sometime. Frank.
See?
So I think this is it.
Okay.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and your stories. And
Maestro.
Yeah. I'm glad it's all in a book. It's not just something that will disappear in the web. And I just want to say I've seen many friends from the States and Europe who are following this. I want to say this in English because they may not know what Photo Action for Turin is. This is a charity to create a special fund, a special COVID-19 fund for two organizations in Turin, UGI, Onlus, and Città della Salute e della Scienza. And this is a great project, and we're contributing. We have over 100 photographers. And I must also take this opportunity to thank two other members of the Holy Trinity of Bruce Springsteen's photographers, Mr. Eric Miola and Mr. Danny Clinch, who also were generous and donated an image to this charity project. So you're more than welcome to go to the website www.photoactionpertorino.org, and with a donation of 100 euros or more, you can secure a fine art print of your favorite pictures. They are in open edition, not signed, not numbered, but they have a chop mark, a special chop mark, and a certificate. And these pictures will be available as fine art prints only until May 21st. So if you like Frank's photo or any other photographer's work,
or Garrett's or anybody's, or Guido.
Yeah. I mean, go and enjoy some incredible images. So I will say this now in Italian for anybody who has tuned in today for this live stream. Photo Action per Torino è una raccolta di fondi per la creazione di un fondo straordinario Covid-19 creato da UGI Onlus e da Città della Salute e della Scienza a Torino per aiutare le famiglie che hanno problemi economici legati appunto alla pandemia e ai bambini del reparto oncoematologico dell'ospedale Regina Margherita, e anche per la creazione di borse di studio per giovani medici che saranno impegnati nei reparti Covid-19. 100 fotografi hanno donato un'opera che è disponibile come stampa fine art al costo di 100 euro. Se ne possono comprare quante se ne vogliono, sia della stessa immagine che di più immagini, in quanto sono in edizione aperta, non firmate, non numerate, ma con un timbro a secco e un certificato. E saranno disponibili solo per questo progetto, solo fino al 21 maggio. Le nostre dirette continueranno ogni giorno, a volte su Facebook, a volte su Instagram. Seguiteci da tutte e due le parti perché sarà diverso più o meno ogni volta. E vi annuncio domani 2 dirette. Il mio socio Paolo Ranzani si prende una buona pausa, per cui domani me ne faccio 2. Una alle 6 col grande Franco Fontana, che ci racconterà delle sue foto, ma anche di un amico carissimo suo che è Art Kane, di cui abbiamo una bellissima foto di immagine di moda. Quindi domani alle ore 6 su Instagram, sul mio profilo, ci sarà Franco Fontana. Poi invece alle 21 avremo Gerard Mankovic, un grande ritrattista di rock inglese che ha fotografato i Rolling Stones nei primi anni 60, è stato uno dei loro fotografi storici, ha realizzato copertine foto meravigliose per Jimi Hendrix, per gli Yardbirds, Cat Stevens, e poi negli anni 70 per Kate Bush, per gli Eurythmics, gli Oasis, e ci ha regalato un'immagine curiosa, è una foto di Lucio Battisti. Come mai? Perché Gerard Mankovic è stato chiamato dalla RCA italiana a realizzare la copertina di un disco che si intitolava E già, quando Battisti andò a registrarlo a Londra. E quindi ci parlerà un inglese un grande fotografo, ci parlerà di Lucio Battisti, ma naturalmente anche dei Rolling Stones. Quindi domani, ripeto, ore 18, Franco Fontana con me, e alle 21 sempre con me Gerard Mankovic. Frank, Zuma Zuma. So it went very quickly. It's been a pleasure, really.
Yeah, it was fun, always.
Well, we'll have to do it again, but in person.
All right, that's a deal. All right.
Stay safe.
Go
Everybody.
back.
Anche voi tutti state al sicuro ancora per un po', non si sa mai. Ci vediamo domani. Arrivederci. Ciao Frank.
Ciao Guido.